And next bit, I will talk about the DAMA program a little bit, because what I'm planning here is I'm going to leave you a lot of time for questioning, or we can have a small group discussion. Every case is very unique. Everyone have different backgrounds, and I heard from Sam, there's 5 or 6 of you are actually teachers, back in Bhutan, primary school teachers and secondary school teachers. So it's very different, and a few engineers, a few people coming from government's background. So it's very different. A bit about DAMA. First thing, I think we need to look at DAMA as it's an employer sponsorship program. Yep. It's not something magical, it's not something very easy. It doesn't work in that way. It is still employer sponsorship. So when it comes to employer sponsorship, the key part is always the employer. You need to find an employer who wanted to sponsor you. Then what's the differences between DAMA and 4A2 visa or 1A6 visa? I think it's coming down to the eligibility, the requirements, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But now, currently, there are 13 DAMAs in Australia. This is a map. If we just look at WA, there are 5 now, actually. 4, there are, 1, 2, 3, 4. These are what I would say regional DAMA, because they are really far away from anywhere. So these are regional DAMA. And there's a new DAMA called WA DAMA, just being introduced this financial year. So there are 5 DAMAs in WA now. There are lots of occupations, a lot of places available in those DAMA programs, and even in Perth as well. So now Perth, if you have a company in Perth who are willing to sponsor you, you can go for DAMA. And the question is, why will they go for DAMA? I think it's more about concession. You will be able to assess, well, actually the employer will be able to assess more occupations, and the requirement for each occupation it's lower. So, the DAMA programs offer a lot of concession on the applicants. I'll give you an example. Under the traditional employer sponsorship strain, the age is 45. Right? If you are more than 45 years old, you can't be sponsored even under sponsorship strain. But for DAMA, it's usually 55. Okay, so the age is, it's higher. English requirement as well. Under the traditional 4A2 visa, as I mentioned before, it's probably 5 points or 5.5. Under DAMA, sometimes it goes down to 4.5. Yeah, so it gives you a bit of concession. For working experience as well, some occupation ask you, well, of course, after November, it will pretty much be the same. It's 1 year anyway. Now it's 2. Under the traditional strain, it's going to be 1 year. DAMA, it's usually 1 year. So with or without the new policy, it's 1 year. And last thing, it's about the TISMIT, which is a salary. It's also important. Some DAMA programs will offer you 10% discounts. So, the employee do not have to pay you 73,000. They can pay you probably 86 or something, 10% less. That's another advantage. And another advantage is the occupations. You'll be able to find some very, some occupation you'll not be able to find on any skill migration program. For example, truck driver, yeah. Barista, people making coffee, those kind of occupation will be existing in some DAMA programs. But I guess the problem is, first of all, they definitely need you to have working experience. So for example, barista, for example, you need to have at least 1 year working experience usually. So you need to work as a barista for 1 year, and then to be qualified as a basic requirements for DAMA. Next bit is, you need to find a company or shop, coffee shop located in the DAMA area. So it had to be within the zone of the DAMA area, and that company willing to sponsor you, and this company will go through process. Okay, so it's still an employee sponsorship program. For example, if you find, let's say, a coffee shop in Pilbara, which is, northern part of WA, and there's a coffee shop who want to sponsor you. I guess the difficult part is, if you have 1 year working experience, you have to convince the employer saying, sponsor me. It happens sometimes when we see clients who are actually working in their company, their facility. We have quite a bit of inquiry from working holiday visa holders. From some countries, they have working holiday visa holders. They work in these places. They're working in farms, they're working in factories, they're working in small shops in those regional area. And after 1 year of employment, and they're starting to talking to the employer saying, would you like to sponsor me, or something like that. So I guess the difficult part is to find an employer who's willing to go for the process. If you find a company who want to sponsor you, then that's definitely a good pathway for you to look into. And currently there are only 2 DAMAs in the metropolitan area, because I mentioned it before, most of DAMA, 13 DAMAs available now, 11s are actually in very different parts of the regional area across Australia. If it's regional part, you need to think about, it's far away from where you're staying now, and it's probably less job opportunity there, less connection there. You're not going to be seeing 10,000, botanists there, it's probably 10 botanists there. So that's the thing you want to take into consideration. So there are two DAMAs which are currently in the metropolitan area, which I suggest you pay attention to, particularly not the WA DAMA actually. The WA DAMA, I think the new WA DAMA, the requirement is pretty high. That's what I'm looking at. The requirement is actually pretty high. You're probably looking to the South Australian DAMA. So if you've got interest in search the South Australian DAMA occupation, they have wider occupation lists, lower requirements. Okay, so look into that because it's in Adelaide. It's in Adelaide, which means probably more job opportunities available there compared to the regional area, and the requirement is a bit lower. But if your English and everything, it's not a problem. English is not a problem. You can definitely look at Perth DAMA as an option. So Perth DAMA and Adelaide DAMA are the two only availables now in the metropolitan area, which we think is